Maria, Maria.
That's right.
That's right. It's Hispanic Heritage Month. Don't forget. So, for those who are listening and maybe have not heard Larry Luqman White. Yeah, I can't hear it. Can't hear
Trust me, you wrong, bro.
the mic. Live radio. That's why we need people to call in and support us, so we can work on expanding and getting some really high tech, radio equipment. So Larry Luqman White, longtime human rights advocate from behind the walls. Bless you. From behind the walls, from during his reentry, he is instrumental in the authorship of the non-traditional approach to criminal social justice, which a lot of us come under that supervision, that study, that gave birth to the Conciencia Study Group, Resurrection Study Group, Liberation Study Group. And so he's the one that I remember Eddie saying was his mentor upon his release. He did approximately 35 years, if I'm not mistaken, right?
32.
32 years in prison. And then upon his release, he went right into it. I mean, he hit the floor like a paratrooper. Hit the floor, ducked, tucked, and rolled, and kept it moving, and joined the Fortune Society and was instrumental in the program of the Fortune Society, and is currently now working with the Quakers, who they're called the American Friends Service Committee, and also currently working on creating a program for the lifers inside the New York State Department of Corrections. So we're going to be talking about that. So Larry White, Luqman, good morning. Thank you for joining us. How are you, brother?
Good morning, good morning. One of the first things I would like to do, is to clarify something that everybody says that I'm Eddie Ellis's mentor. That's not the case at all. I mean, me and Eddie Ellis we were partners, you might say. We were collaborators. We were dealing with a situation that I'm a conceptualist. I deal a lot with concepts. Eddie is more down to earth. He'll take the concepts and build it where people can act upon it. But more than that, it was just more than just me and Eddie Ellis. I mean, there were guys like we have in the studio today, T2, Humble, Rob, and we got 5 here. So it was really a collective effort that was taking place in the prison system. And it all started with a basic question. We look around the yard and we say, I know practically everybody here, and everybody here looks similar to me. How can that be when we are a minority in the state population, but we are a majority in the prison situation? And the answer to that question is what started the whole thing. So people got, they begin to understand and question their own imprisonment. You know what I mean? And when you begin to question your own imprisonment, then that's what that's what the administration doesn't like, and they don't want that to happen. But we prevailed, and we had a lot of people who had college backgrounds that were able to do research, who were able to write study papers, and that's how it took off.
So real briefly, what was the non-traditional approach? Before I introduce this, I definitely want to introduce Angel T2 Rivera, who's in the house, and want to make sure that he says good morning. So just real briefly, in a couple of words to you, the non-traditional approach, that whole study, what did it mean to you?
Well, the non-traditional approach answered a lot of questions that the majority of the population, and I say the majority of the population, I'm talking about people of color in prison, had to ask themselves, it was every day you could read in the media about people who committed the same acts they did and never came to prison. How did I get here? Why am I here? It's not just for robbery or selling drugs or for rape and all that. It's much more than that. So the non-traditional approach, when we questioned that, what we said here was this. Traditionally, the criminal justice system and how this society operates says this: the person who commits a crime, there's something the matter with him. That there's a devil or evil inside of him. There's something that sets him apart. Because everybody else follows the rules. You know what I mean? It must be him specifically. And not only him specifically, this whole thing about, social conditions don't have anything to do with it. Because there were people who have the same social conditions as a criminal and never commit a crime, And so what they said, the non-traditional approach says, the first thing we have to do is send this guy, he needs a spanking, he needs punishment. We need to go inside and beat that devil or that evilness out of him and rehabilitate him and send him back to the community. That's their approach. Well, what we found in the prison system when we got together and questioned ourselves about this was this, that people, people who commit crimes are people. People do not live in a vacuum. People live in a world. They live in a society, an environment. And that environment impacts upon them. They act upon their environment, and the environment acts upon them. You throw a ball against the wall, it throws it back. So social conditions play a great deal in how people act. We react to social conditions. It ain't something that we dreamt last night.
Right.
And so non-traditional approach says you must address the social conditions as well as the individual during the course of addressing criminality.
T2. Good morning, brother. Thank you for joining us. Angel T2 Rivera, also one of the founders of the study group, non-traditional approach, as well as the Conciencia study group. He was actually my mentor for many years and actually introduced me to the Conciencia. So, Conciencia.
Conciencia, thank you for having me in WBAI and to be able to sit down with you guys to discuss this issue. I love what Brother Luqman was sharing because it was that one powerful question. And the question is, how is it that although Black and Latino comprise of 28% of the total New York State population, yet they comprise of over 82% of the New York State prison population, and out of that number, here goes the craziest part, out of that number, 75% come from the New York City area. So then we say, why this disproportional representation, and what is the future implication? Really, what happened?
Yeah.
And it was as a result of that question that we started to dig real deep into our historical perspective. The Resurrection and the Liberation Study Group started to look at it from a Black perspective, and Conciencia started to look at it from the Latino perspective, and how that migration started taking place, and how, especially for the Puerto Rican population that started to migrate into this part of the world in the late 30s and the 40s and the 50s, to look for an American dream but found an American nightmare. And when they started to go into the prison system, people like the Young Lords, they was having a lot of social activities going on, and they started to question all these things. So what we did, we continued to build on that question, and we found that there is an unbiblical call between the prison and the community, and we needed to find our way out of this madness, because if you cannot identify your historical perspective, then you're not going to have a future. You're not going to understand where you're going and where, where you came from and where you want to go. So I'm glad that we are here to discuss this kind of element. And, one of the things that I always suggest to all the brothers and sisters in the prison system, continue to educate yourself, because nobody's going to care about you when you come out of those draconian dungeons. So one of the most important things, you have to be able to make that unbiblical connection by educating yourself, getting involved with some of the communities that we have, like for example, Exodus Transition Community, Osborne, and there's a lot of other stuff that are there that are specifically geared,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
Space-
Incarcerated Nation. You
Right,
got the brother
incarcerated
here,
nation. So
Clive,
there
who's
is a lot of
gonna
wonderful
speak in a minute as
programs
well.
that is geared for people that
Yeah.
did time, because there's other organizations that might not give you the same platform as those that we can relate to.
Yeah. So I did want to talk specifically about a few topics, but we're definitely going to have an organic conversation. But as you're listening, please go to the phones and call 212-209-2950. 212-209-2950. Give whatever you can give. Go online to WBAI.org. Give to the number 2 WBAI, and become a BAI buddy for as little as $10 a month. It comes out automatically, and what happens is that you are showing your commitment to on the count to WBAI, because there's going to be just a little bit coming out of your account every month, and in the long run it winds up being a lot. My wife is doing it. She got the tote bag too, so that's a good thing. We got the tote bag hanging there, and you'd be surprised, man. That little bit, it's like Eddie always told us, man, none too small till there's none at all. But I did want to talk a little bit about to get both of your brothers' reactions about, because we got people asking about parole and what's happening with parole. What is the current problem about parole? What are some of the solutions? So we can talk just briefly about that and then move into some of the other work that you're doing. But before we do that, Five, why don't you come here, brother? And real quickly, because Five, Mualimm, we always mangle his brother's name.
Mualimm-ak.
Just real quickly, man. You have an announcement. Some of the bills that you were working on. The mayor yesterday. Do you have that off the top top of your head, I know I'm putting you on the spot, but Eddie said maybe stay ready, you ain't got to get ready.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
What were you
You're
working
absolutely
on last night, and what has happened with regards
Well,
to
he
the mayor?
signed into, which is quote unquote, for people incarcerated on Rikers Island, a Bill of Rights.
Mhm.
Now, we have a numerous amount of bills. Now, what I do want to bring to attention is the 16th, there will be a hearing at the BOC, which is the Board of Corrections. They will be deciding on different rules to change the structure of visitation of Rikers. They are now, and this is also Brother Stanley, who's now on the Board of Corrections, which he fought for someone previously incarcerated for 4 years, and they finally appropriated Stanley onto the board. And they're trying to create rules that will fingerprint and actually interrogate visitors. They want to cut down the visitation line. They want to check and see if you have a civil case, if you have a court case, if you owe rent, if you owe phone bills, like literally if you have any criminal charges, to be able to incarcerate you on your visit.
Wow.
And then visits are going to be longer. So this is an attack on the family members that are going on. So the Bill of Rights and the bills that are being voted into the city now, legislation is coming up actually to provide legal representation for people on Rikers while they're going through a disciplinary hearing. These things are important, but it's a public comment that we have created that is important for the people to have a voice. If you've been on Rikers, create a testimony or write a paragraph about your experience, and you can email it in. You can email it at info@incarceratednation.org, and we will deliver it and have someone read it for you.
Okay.
But this is important, and these bills that are coming up are being unnoticed and under the people's eyes.
Cool. Thank you, brother.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for that announcement. And we're going to be coming back to some of that, because that also is some of the work that we're doing here, because we're trying to create a more just society, create positive change and policy. Yeah, so there's a lot happening though. There's a lot of good that's coming out. I mean, I was on Facebook and I see the picture of the mayor actually signing this Bill of Rights into something. And that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for people like brothers from Incarcerated Nation, who was actually instrumental in making this thing a reality. And this is from us. This is from people who are currently incarcerated, their families, people who are formerly incarcerated, but are making this happen.
That's it. And we have an open coalition, the Jails Action Coalition, and you can go to nycjac.org, and we have monthly trainings, we have monthly meetings, we try to get the people involved. We have a family collective about just fighting for visitation rights, but these are collectives that are made up by the people in a non-traditional grassroots approach.
So this is one of the reasons why we need On the Count. And in order for On the Count to be here, we need people to call in and support us. Support this radio station with as little bit as you can give. Man. I mean, if you happen to be one of those people that are in a good place right now, and you can give, $100, then give $100. But the book that we're offering as a gift, if you were to call in right now and donate $30 to On the Count, to WBAI in the name of On the Count, then you will get a gift. And the gift is called All Things Censored, and it's a book by Mumia Abu-Jamal with more than 75 essays, many freshly composed with the cartridge of a ballpoint pen, the only implement that Mumia Abu-Jamal is allowed in his cell. So definitely we need to support it. It's an awesome book, and it's only $30, and you'll be able to read Mumia Abu-Jamal's work. So please call in 212-209-2950, pledge $30 and get the book. So Luqman,
Yes, sure.
in the few minutes that we have before the break, what do you see as the major problem with regards to parole in here, specifically in New York State prisons? I know there's people listening who are maybe in other states, so let's just be specific. We're talking about the current parole situation here in New York State.
The current situation for me, the way I see it, is that the parole board is treated as if they're acting alone, as if they're acting by themselves and for themselves. Actually, there's a sentencing scheme in New York, and the people involved in this sentencing scheme is the courts, the prison system, and the parole system. Originally, the three had a kind of a pact between the three that they wouldn't interfere with each other. The courts look at the crime, and they look at the seriousness of the crime, all right, and to fashion a sentence. The sentence is generally fashioned in terms of parameters, minimums and maximums and all that. But the court, its primary thing is look at the seriousness of the crime and determine how much punishment, how much rehabilitation